And we are live. Welcome, everyone. This is Ray. You're watching Hard Targets Intel, open source intel by the people for the people. News from a multipolar world. And Ramadan Kareem, my friends. It is the first day of the month of Ramadan, officially. So, for those of you who are celebrating alongside me, I wish you a generous month of Ramadan. For everyone else, welcome. Come into the stream. It's probably going to be a short stream today, because there's not too much to talk about. It's more like I try to keep it as visual as I can, because there's a lot of clips coming out of France. A lot of clips, more so than usual. If you follow me on TikTok, same like at Hard Targets Intel on TikTok, there's I post a lot because it just gains a lot of traction. You post like clips of people setting fires in France, but the escalation of conflict between protesters and the police has been qualitatively much more intense in the past 24 hours, or I assume these clips are from the last 24 hours. In any case, these past few days have seen some a number of different escalations on from all sectors of the country, and I just want to go through some of the clips to just to enjoy the spectacle. And I think, but before we get into it, just follow me on my Telegram channels, where you can get the breakdown of this. If the deep state ever decides to take me off of the internet, follow me on my Twitter account. We're going to be going through the clips that I have compiled on my Twitter account, so you can always follow me there for personal takes of mine for as long as I'm on Twitter. I am already suffering Wi-Fi connectivity issues. This does not bode well for showing clips. Well, we will try and get through it. I'll try and quit out of as many apps as I can. Welcome to those of you just tuning in. Thank you for tuning into Hard Targets. This is Ray. Ramadan Kareem for my one viewer. Got to put up the banner. All right. Let's see how many other things I can close out of to protect my Wi-Fi connection. Okay. All right. So, just a little background for those of you who haven't been following the protests in France, because why would you? Who cares about France? Several weeks ago, President Macron had issued a decree that he was raising the retirement age in France from 62 to 64, which, if you live in the United States, where people regularly work until the age of 70, where the retirement age is 65. Federally it's 65, so already we just don't care that much. And in China also, the retirement age, I think, average is 67. It's normal. Is it ideal? Not really, but people are living into their 70s, 80s. That's the effect of modern medicine, is now that people are living into their 70s and 80s, like a retirement age of 65 is not an unreasonable thing. It has been the same, at least in the United States, a retirement age of 65 for decades, because when it was first introduced, the life expectancy average was like 67 or 68 people. That's when you were expected to die, was 2 years after you retired. But modern medicine has improved so much that it is not uncommon to live 30 years after your retirement age or when you're expected to retire. So, again, not none doesn't really seem like an extreme. And it was, not this. What he bypassed, and you know, like he bypassed an election process to make this decree. But again, this is not uncommon for presidents to do. Presidents make executive orders all the time. But this, again, not very extreme executive order led to a wave of protests that sets the entire country, north, south, east, west, cities, countryside, suburbs, on fire. The French have been going off against the government, burning down buildings, throwing Molotov cocktails. The police in kind have been using more and more brutal tactics in the streets to beat down protesters. Effigies have been burning in the streets. It's wild. France isn't a country anymore, and it's hard to not see this being the future of places like America that have similar economic circumstances of being, heavily dependent on a welfare state to supply voting age people with with I have no other word for it, but welfare to supply people with some sort of safety net. It just turns out in France, 62 was the average retirement age, or the retirement age, and raising it 2 years to 64. And again, it's not like France has a very low life expectancy. They also have a life expectancy into the 70s or higher. So raising it to 64 does not seem that unreasonable. But for the past several weeks, the entire country has been lit on fire. We're going to go through. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure to follow me on Telegram and Twitter. We're going to go through some of the clips that I've compiled on my Twitter account. Okay. So hopefully my Wi-Fi doesn't crap out on me. Leave a comment if it does. Right. Yeah, so I posted this about 20 minutes ago, and so already we are starting to see an escalation in the basic sense of rioters are now. I mean, these aren't protesters anymore. They have not been for a very long time. These are rioters, and France has been going through an ongoing riot where not only are people taking to the streets, destroying property and blocking the streets, but barricades themselves have been lit on fire all over the city. Like if you go onto Telegram, the number of videos that people are clipping of barricades of garbage and debris being lit on fire to block, so that ambulances and police cars have to weave through these. It looks like Gotham. And it's just dozens and dozens of videos of different barricades just burning in the streets of Paris, let alone all the other urban centers of the country. Which, in and of itself, a week ago, people were like burning large effigies that were taken to the streets, taking these straw-filled effigies with the faces of people like Macron and other French government officials, and burning those in the middle of the streets, erecting large like pagan monuments to be lit on fire, dancing around them in a circle. Very, very childish footage. This is different. This is not just a demonstration, like a very pagan demonstration for the sake of protesting. This is actual destruction of property and the blockading of many city streets so that traffic can't get in and out, so that government services can't respond to the riots. We can clearly see here this building is just filled with smoke and all of the garbage that has been piled up over the course of days and weeks is being fueled. People running to these barricades and flooding them with even more fuel, so uh, that it poses an even greater risk to property, to government officials, to police and ambulances who are trying to weave through all of this, all of these cities, trying to push back against protesters, trying to put out fires, trying to respond to the injured, which is different than having a massive pagan effigy in the middle of the street and marching around it in a circle, uh, waving your titties around. Again, France isn't a real country, but this just straight up just looks like Gotham. And probably the most extreme of the fires is here in Bordeaux, the city hall that has been lit on fire. Not just like a small like little fire that can be put out, and that the entire building is just engulfed in flames. And here in America, where 3 years ago in the summer of 2020, during those color revolutions, those George Soros color revolutions that took place during the summer, these images are very familiar to us. And already we can start to see the parallels. On the one hand, not just the escalation of destruction of government property, of lighting, and it's not just City Hall, by the way. In other cities, police precincts engulfed in flames, which again, here in America, is we're pretty familiar with images like that after 2020, the George Floyd color revolutions. So the escalation of government property being destroyed, as well as there being no real demands from any organizations in France other than the removal of Macron and an inability to de-escalate. And uh, a that's a similarity between a lot of open society, George Soros, Antifa, anarchist activity such as this, which is clearly being led by these types, because there are no demands other than the removal of government officials, with no positive program in place. Just burning down buildings for the sake of destruction, with no replacement ready to come to the rescue here. That's the point. That has always been the point. We know that because here in America, when Black Lives Matter was burning down buildings, burning down police precincts, when Antifa was occupying Seattle, a black neighborhood in Seattle, and killing black kids in Seattle, there was no program to replace any liberal establishments, institutions like the police, like like members of the government. It was just destruction to raise the crime rate, to cause civil panic. there's no yeah, and like in America, after months and months of this insanity of saying to defund the police, we got what we got what was demanded. Police in here in the United States are precincts all over the country are having hiring emergencies. They can't hire enough personnel. Cities like Atlanta have wait times for 911 of up to 30 minutes or more. Crime rates are skyrocketing. And this is a similar situation playing out in France. Only, I mean, the quality of people taking to the streets and burning stuff down is a lot worse. So God only knows what the country will look like a year from now when the full effects of this anarchy, of this particular color revolution, settles into everyday life, not just the spectacle of riots, but when it affects uh, government institutions, civil institutions like schools and police precincts, of the economy, rising crime rates, and just general open society, George Soros type. Yeah, yeah. Maybe I'm spending too long on each of the videos, but this one got me. Firefighters, which you can see, seeing a split here between civil servants, between like police who are getting increasingly violent with protesters, and now firefighters who are demonstrating. While we see so much, and you should see some of the videos on Telegram of buildings on fire and phone booths on fire, these columns of burning structures all over the country. So the fact that we have firefighters demonstrating on the side of the protesters is insane to me. Just allowing such a Wi-Fi is acting up, so I'm gonna stop sharing for a second. But allowing such a dangerous situation to get worse. Like we saw what happened when just one city in the United States was occupied by anarchist protesters for 3 weeks in the Chaz zone in Seattle. I mean, there were a couple of zones like that. Chaz was the biggest and the most egregious, trying to block out uh, civil servants to respond with ambulances, fire departments. They could not get in. People died. People were killed. The community as a whole was terrorized for weeks. And part of that is also on default of governors and coward American politicians who gave explicit instructions to uh, other forces of the city police not to enter Capitol Hill, not to go and sweep out the Antifa protesters. But that's just adding fuel to the fire. This is a similar situation. I don't know if Macron's government is what kind of orders they're giving to civil servants, to government officials, to people like firefighters. I mean, they're obviously telling the police to get more brutal with protesters because we're seeing more footage of them getting rough. But can you blame them? Can you? It's not like it's these are no longer, and they have not been for a long time, peaceful demonstrations. These are people throwing Molotov cocktails, throwing explosive, incendiary devices. These are people who are posing a very real risk to everyday French civilians. So yeah, am I for universal police crackdowns against protests and riots? I mean, it depends on the situation. Here, it's understandable. Here, it makes sense. And the fact that firefighters are allowing this to happen just reeks of that same government interference that we had in the United States of allowing the spiral of violence to continue. This is insanity. It is not even just that it is a job that you swore to protect the lives of citizens, that is your job. Politicizing the safety of like civilians, politicizing the destruction of social fabric, politicizing anarchy for the sake of not wanting to work until you're 64, which is a very reasonable age to be expected to work when you're going to be living decades longer than that, is childish. It's worse than childish. It's malicious, selfish. It's dangerous. I mean, this, in at least in the United States, in the Chaz occupied zone on Capitol Hill in Seattle, the police wanted to interfere. Firefighters wanted to interfere. EMT officials wanted to interfere to stop the madness. This just shows such a short-sighted desire to not even for any personal gain, just to signal your short-sighted political values. It's disgusting, honestly. Even if the protests and riots were of a noble cause, even if the French riots were of a noble cause and not over something stupid, not like not wanting to work until you're 64, even if this decision for French firefighters to demonstrate against the putting out of burning buildings, of barricades on fire, preventing ambulances from getting into the cities is disgusting. It is their responsibility to keep people safe. If they cared so much about civil demonstration, about protesting the government, they would want people alive to be able to do that. Like, does that not make sense to these people? Like the anarchist mindset of of standing for your ideals while people's livelihoods are burning around them, while people's lives are in danger for your silly short-sighted ideals. All of France is overcome with this anarchist uh, tendency, up to and including firefighters who allegedly have taken an oath to defend people's lives. Could you imagine doctors doing this? Like, let me bring the video back up. Like, can you imagine doctors in France uh, joining a demonstration to join the crowd and allow this chaos to continue? I mean, that doesn't at looking at videos like this, that doesn't seem out of place of the next step of where these protests are going to go. If firefighters who are supposed to prevent the city hall of Bordeaux from burning down, from police precincts from burning down, from people getting uh, caught up in these, in these fires. Oh, okay. So we got yeah, and that's the anarchist tendency we have in the comments here. We have children like Tarkovsky saying "Viva la chaos." If you were in the middle of the chaos, I don't know if you're there now. I mean, if you're there now, then God help you a year from now when you know Public services are gutted because why would the government fund public services when when the population is acting, is going to burn down literally anything anytime an executive order is made. Like someone needs to be the parent here. France needs a strong smack in the ass to get people out of this mindset that chaos is good. Like, what if you're like a mother trying to get to work to feed her kids and you don't want to be driving through barricades of fire to get to work? Like, retiring at age 64 doesn't sound that unreasonable if you're her. What if you're a truck driver? Like, all these uh, working class people who this massive level of interruption to their ability to feed themselves, I don't think they're saying "Viva la chaos." If they are, then they've succumbed to this short-sighted anarchist delusion that the people, the people's intentions are like this is what real democracy looks like. This is what sovereignty looks like. No, burning down your home is not what sovereignty looks like. Actually, that is you forfeiting your sovereignty. Actually, that's you giving up your sovereignty, destroying the place where you live. It was the French. It was some French goon. I remember reading "My People Shall Live" by Leila Khaled. They were in a Palestinian camp, and she was talking to some French anarchist who said exactly that. He said, "Let chaos reign." And Leila Khaled said, "My people are already living in chaos. Like, look around you. This is what chaos looks like. This is what your ideology is when it's come to full fruition." And I can't help but think that a similar mindset is playing out all across France, in the cities, in the suburbs, in the countryside. That entire mindset of let chaos reign. This is just the beginning. Like, this is the permanent state of chaos, where your ability to have this pure democracy is impeded because there is no ability to negotiate, there is no ability to compromise, there are no organizations or positions of leadership to be able to give and take and set programs. There's no way to de-escalate the situation. What is the end result for you? What is Please, you want to comment in my comment section. Please tell me what the end result is for the French people. Or anywhere where this is happening, with color revolutions like this. What was the end result here in America? It was skyrocketing crime rates. And it was a response of a new strategy of Democrats to replace police with National Guard members. What was the result in Ukraine during the Maidan coup? Tell me, what was the result? Because that's what this was in Ukraine back in 2014 during the Maidan coup. What was the result of that chaos? Neo-Nazis coming into power. There's no reality to the idea that anarchy is challenging to the liberal order. Anarchy feeds into liberal hegemonic austerity. It's part of the strategy. We've seen it during the Arab Spring. It's the same thing. During the Hong Kong protests, where students were shooting at cops and saying, "No, we actually support Hong Kong's right to harbor murderers. We don't want to extradite this guy to China, even though he murdered his pregnant girlfriend." So they started shooting at cops. That's what chaos affords you, is being swept up into the moment and feeling, oh, like everything's changing. Wow, everyone, like I have the right to now burn down my place of business and my home and my city. Wow, I'm so free to destroy everything that keeps me functioning. Lunacy, childishness. France isn't a real country anymore. Hasn't been for a long time. And that's not even, yeah, that's not even the end of the clips. And now that my Wi-Fi's a little better, let's watch some more clips of this lunacy. Again, do I support universal police crackdowns? Of course not. But again, it's understandable here in France. If I had to choose a side, I'd choose the police over the rioters because I know what comes after the rioters. It's things like neo Nazis put in power after the liberal government is steps down. If I had to choose, if I was put in this awful situation, in this garbage situation, I would back the police 100% of the time. No hesitation. Automatically. So here, here's a video of the French protesters. So obviously we're familiar with the like walls of. So obviously we're familiar with what walls of police look like when you have riot police with their shields and they march on the streets to push back against waves of crowds. Here we see the crowd overrunning the police, throwing fireworks and explosive devices at the police. And upon their retreat, the crowd of people just charging it. It's not just fireworks too; it's Molotov cocktails. I didn't post a video of the Molotov cocktails being thrown, but yeah, the the police just don't have the capacity to effectively push back against the rioters anymore, and so that's why we're seeing the police throwing journalists to the ground and shoving and shoving people against walls and and beating them with their shields. One protester got run over with a police scooter. Saw a video of one guy being thrown to the ground and a police officer running up and kicking him in the ribs. Just an all around horrible situation. All around horrible situation to put to put your country in for no reason. For no reason. More evidence that this is a liberal, like, open society. Um, color revolution is, black blocks are starting to appear. And if you don't know what black blocks are, like it's an Antifa tactic of getting crowds of your anarchist buddies in black, covering up your faces, and then bull rushing protests to be able to destroy property and disperse so that you can't be identified. We saw this in Atlanta a couple of months ago. A black bloc had formed to be able to destroy property downtown. And yeah, it's one of the telltale signs, during Hong Kong protests with those black umbrellas, being able to cover up from drone footage. Yeah, it's a telltale sign of CIA-backed activity, to be honest, uh, because Antifa likes to pretend, and anarchists like to pretend that, oh, we're not organized, we don't have, we don't have orders to do this, but a number of people showing up in one spot, in color coordinated hiding their faces, and destroying the same buildings is coordinated. Like, not to mention all the at least in America, all the Antifa Twitter accounts that coordinate riot events and give people dates, times, places, meeting locations, rendezvous points, targets. To fantasize that that's not coordination is dishonest at best. So yeah, this is just more evidence that the French protests are orchestrated from the liberal establishment, who, for one reason or another, want to replace Macron with someone more hardline. That's how anarchism plays out in. That's how throughout history. Anytime there's anarchy, for those of you who are one to the anarchist line of thinking, anarchy is always imposed by the liberal establishment to be able to exact harsher, more authoritarian reforms. There's a Nazi anarchy dialectic of which liberalism is the compromise. Neither fascism nor anarchism actually challenges the liberal establishment. They are two sides of the same coin battling for supremacy over the liberal system. Whether or not liberalism should be an open network, an open anarchistic network where there's no hierarchical structures and where decisions are made by shadowy networks of NGOs and the media and and nonprofits, or if it's a deterministic liberalism, the deterministic liberalism of the fascist who imposes liberal austerity, who imposes individualist degeneracy of materialism. We saw during the Spanish Civil War, anarchists helped pave the way for Franco to take over the government. Again, we saw this here in the United States, where Antifa paved the way for Joe Biden to come in and start imposing austerity and to start giving money to Ukrainian Nazis, who were also put in power partially because of the chaos being sowed by these anarchist riots. Here's a video, and I haven't mentioned this particular video yet, but again, protesters occupying the Paris International Airport. Like, what's the airport have to do with Parliament? What's the airport have to do with Parliament? It's not. So it has nothing to do with Parliament. It has everything to do with shutting down the engines of the French economy, so that there is no backing away from this. So that even if Macron was swept out of power, and he said, so Macron himself said he's not running for re-election. Whoever replaces him is going to have to impose fascist austerity by necessity because of crap like this, because of childishness like this. That's the point. If you're a so-called anti-fascist, have you ever stopped to question why so many of your actions, the end result is putting fascism into power? It's because of stuff like this. The airport has nothing to do with Macron. It has everything to do with keeping France like a legitimate country, to be able to facilitate the flow of traffic and goods. You shut that down, that's just one more institution that made you a real country that is gone. You're invalidating your ability to be a real country. And yeah, that's all the videos I'd assembled on my Twitter account. Trust me, if you go on Telegram, there's dozens more. Oh no, that wasn't the last one. Yeah, yeah. One of the first one I saw from today was, yeah, just these garbage trucks driving up to the residential areas of government officials and dumping full truckloads of garbage in front of their houses and manure, which that actually is pretty funny. I would support action like that because it gets to the doorstep of people making those decisions, sends a message without like interfering in the everyday lives of like the working class. That it's still childish, but I'll allow that one. Doesn't threaten anyone's life. It's not setting fire. It's not like an encouraging firemen to just allow buildings to burn down and allow barricades to continue blocking traffic and ambulances. So that actually I would support, and I do support, but I mean, it's for the dumbest cause. As a tactic, sure. If I saw that somewhere else for a good cause, yeah, I support it. But unfortunately, it's happening in France. Yeah, leave a comment. Let me know what you think, because this isn't slowing down anytime soon. Um, yeah, it's all indications. I mean, the weather is getting warmer, which is only going to encourage more people to join in on the chaos. I mean, Macron said he's not seeking re-election, but he has not indicated that he's going to step down. The law has, been is not being swept aside. It's a law now. And there's no ability on either side to sue for some sort of negotiation because anarchists don't have the structures put in place to allow for negotiation and compromise so that escalation can continue. We're seeing that right now with with Cop City in Atlanta here in the United States. Similar setup, similar tactics, similar end goal. So leave a comment. Let me know what you think. I mean, I had been posting for the past few weeks. Every couple of days, a new video I post on TikTok of these French protests, and they always get thousands of views every time. Just everyone on liberal occupied, social media accounts, especially TikTok. Very very much young leftist, children being indoctrinated by news events like this. Just the latest video I had posted on TikTok was a crowd of French protesters shouting, "We beheaded Louis XIV. We will do the same to Macron." And currently, that video has been seen 9,000 times. And of the 9,000 people who have viewed it, a sweeping majority of those people support the French protests. That's the state we're in. That is that's the next 10 years of of politics in Western countries. If liberals now are indoctrinating kids to think this is a viable political strategy, these kids are going to grow up and become uber liberals or worse if we don't interrupt this pattern of thinking now. For that, in full transparency, I really don't care about France. I really don't. France, the French Empire has not been of relevance for well over 100 years. This is what happens to empires that fall out of relevance. They descend into chaos and madness. This is the Roman capital being sacked by barbarians 300 years after it had stopped being the seat of political power in the Roman Empire. I really don't care about France. I care about the precedent it sets for countries like the United States that has seen this happen, for countries like Germany that is going to be going through even more degrowth programs, as it continues to buckle under the influence of United States foreign policy, as the war in Ukraine drags on, and the United States continues to force other countries, allied countries, to commit economic suicide. This is the tactics that the international rules based order of globalism, we'll call it, has used against colonized countries for the past century, since the end of World War II, to start color revolutions in order to sow chaos. We're seeing this happen in Nigeria because they were just having some elections. Government officials and presidential candidates being assassinated left and right. Um, this is politics now for the next 10 years. We have to get away from the idea that it affords us sovereignty to set fire to our cities. Organization is hard. Organization is constant. Organization is thankless. But it is what makes the difference in your community, locally, nationally, internationally. Getting a group of people together, a group of dedicated cadre together, to constantly influence people in political office, to constantly influence the decisions of people in their communities, to get them together, to accumulate resources and use those resources in a coordinated way to increase people's power. Whether you're coordinating food sovereignty, for to distribute healthcare, to educate people. That's what real revolutionary work is educating people of other systems of doing things that are available that actually improve your life. Whether that's literally educating people to read, like revolutionaries in Cuba and Vietnam did, educating them of how to use weaponry to defend themselves from uh, French and American colonizers, or it's educating people on how to how to fight against U.S. propaganda. It's educating people what actual democracy looks like. It's educating people of the benefits of organization and discipline. It's educating people when their rights are being attacked before before laws like this get passed. It's alerting the public to the fact that policies like this are getting passed, and organizing people to be able to push back before it becomes law. If really you don't like this kind of executive order, again, the only option you have is organizing an alternative, rather than convincing the firefighters and 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 civil officials to support burning down the social fabric that keeps everyone's quality of life high. Convince people to organize in such a way that they don't need to rely on the government and their welfare policies. How to produce more in the workplace, how to save more financially, how to take care of their kids so they don't have to rely on failing government services. Revolution is people work, it's educating the people so that they don't do childish stuff like this. I fully expect this to happen again in the United States come this summer. We were seeing, the deep state, George Soros types, try to make it a national thing when Atlanta Antifa started to burn stuff down. I mean, they're not from Atlanta. It was anarchists from all over the country being flown into Atlanta. But I fully expect this to happen in the United States come this summer. I don't know what event's going to kick it off. It's impossible to say. But yeah, in terms of actually building community power of sovereignty in the regions where you live, we got to educate people as much as we can. That is the most important thing we can do, is to educate people, especially young people, people under 30, especially them who are prone to thinking that riots are equivalent to political power. Educate them differently. Educate them. No, this is giving up your sovereignty. This is giving up your uh, the dictatorship you have over your life. It's education. Talk to people. Get them to see how anarchy is a part of liberal hegemonic soft power, rather than getting a military to destroy a city. You can just propagandize the population to destroy a city for you. That's what soft power is using means other than military violence to destroy a country. We have no evidence yet that that these protests are of the same vein as like the Maidan coup in Ukraine, or the protests in Atlanta, or the protests going on in Georgia, like all those other places, or in the coming war between Azerbaijan and Armenia. I mean, all those other places we have evidence that there is foreign interference, specifically on the part of the United States. With France, there's no hard evidence that that's the case. But even if there is no foreign interference, which, again, given the black bloc, given the burning of city hall, things that we've seen happen in the United States, uh, I mean, I find it very likely that there is U.S. interference, considering, if Biden was bold enough to blow up the Nord Stream pipeline to destroy Germany, I fully believe that he would interfere in French politics and foment these coups. No evidence for it yet. I fully expect there to come to light that there was foreign interference. But it's important because all those tactics eventually come home to roost. They will have consequences here in the United States. And so educating people of how this is part of the liberal strategy of enforcing austerity measures down the line is vital. I want, the next time I post on my TikTok of French people burning down a hospital or something, I want the next 9,000 people watching that video to explain in the comment section how, no, that is not going to make the country better, actually. But right now, I'm not seeing it. Right now, I'm seeing people like Tarkovsky saying "Viva la chaos" while they type from their suburbs, safely from the couches in their suburbs. It's always who it is. Suburbanites going into the cities to burn stuff because they know they can just go back home away from the chaos. Expose those people. Expose those people. Every single time it's a suburbanite being blown into the city to rile up the crowd. And then when the dust settles, where are they? Where did they go? Where's Ray Epps? after telling people to riot in DC? Where's yeah, where are the people telling us "Viva la chaos"? They're back in the suburbs, collecting paychecks from the media or from NGOs or from the State Department, like in Iran. I forget that wench's name, but the leader of the feminist LGBT protests in Iran, that Iranian woman is not even an Iranian citizen. She's a U.S. citizen. What is her name? I'm just for posterity's sake for the video. That yeah. If yeah, I wish I had more people to tell me her name. Yeah, yeah. Masi Alinejad. Masi Alinejad. She's not even. Yeah, let me pull up her face just so you know who I'm talking about. You might have seen her on like CNN or something. This person. Remember when the news was saying that this person, leader of feminist Iranian protests, championing women's rights in Iran, says why we need to regime change. We need regime change in Iran. This wench, she's not even an Iranian citizen. She is a U.S. citizen and she works for the State Department. Funny that. Funny that the people who are telling crowds of people to burn everything down and to commit violence against the police. Funny how they work for the State Department or they push State Department's slogans or they're enforcing State Department foreign policy goals of regime change. Funny. So I have no doubt in my mind that a similar situation is going on in France. That Macron has fallen out of favor with the U.S. International rules-based order, has proven himself incapable of enforcing austerity measures, and so he'll be replaced. That's the only condition on which these riots will stop, is when he is removed from power, and then all of the suburbanites, all of the anarchist state assets will disappear, will slink back to their caves. And then austerity measures for everyone else, for the majority of the country, for the working class of the population, for the poor, for people who did not want these riots to be occurring. Life will get worse for them. So it's important that we educate people before that stuff happens, to point it out and prevent it from happening here or anywhere else, to call it out for what it is. It's wrecker shit. It's wrecker shit. It's childish. It stops here. So, and that's all I had for today. Thank you all for tuning in. Once again, make sure to follow me on Telegram at Hard Targets Intel. You can follow me on Twitter at IronSunUSA. Yeah, this it's. I hope that the next time I talk about France, it's hopefully I never have to talk about France again. They're irrelevant. But the next time I talk about France, it's because people have seen the light. People no longer find this type of behavior acceptable, and we have moved on into a true, disciplined, conservative mode of organizing political power and community regional sovereignty. That's the hope. Until then, you've been watching Hard Targets, open source intel by the people, for the people, news from a multipolar world. This is Teray. Appreciate y'all for tuning in, as long as you have. And that's all I got. I'm out.